Hi my scholars, in today's videos we shall be discussing the gross anatomy of the scapula, the triangular thin plate of bone with posterolateral aspect of the thoracic cage. Let's look into that. Alright, so the gross anatomy of the scapula. So this one right here is the scapula, and we're going to be discussing it under various headings. So first, let's just have a definition. So definition. So the scapula is also called the shoulder blade. Shoulder blade. Okay, it is a triangular, thin, and flattened bone. So triangular, thin, and flattened bone, and it's one of the bones of the pectoral girdle. Okay, because together with the clavicle they form the pectoral girdle, and their major function is simply to attach the axial skeleton, to attach the appendicular skeleton known as the upper limb to the axial skeleton. That's simply the major function of the girdles. So it is a shoulder blade. It is thin. It is flattened. Okay, and it is located. So the location is located at the posterolateral aspect. Posterolateral aspect of the upper part of the thoracic cage. Upper part of the thoracic cage. So let us look at this location. So the scapula is located behind and slightly away from the midline. That is posterolateral aspect of the upper part of the thoracic cage. Okay, so when you look at the thoracic cage, it's the skeleton of the thorax. If you look at behind the thoracic cage, or the posterior aspect of the thoracic cage, you look at the upper part and they're slightly away from the midline. That is where you locate the two shoulder blades or the scapula. Alright. Now, the scapula presents so many features and it performs so many functions. So what are the functions of the scapula? If you follow the previous lectures, you'll be able to know the basic function of all bones functions. First, for the scapula, the first I will mention is it provides a large surface area for the attachment of muscles. Okay, it has so many attachments. So it provides a large surface area for muscle attachment. This is related to the major function of the scapula. Okay, then it provides articular surfaces for joints. So the scapula provides articular surfaces for several joints. Take for instance the shoulder joint or the glenohumeral joints. Okay, the glenoid cavity of the scapula articulates with the head of the humerus. So articulation. Alright. Of course, protection. Okay. Of course, it also strengthens the upper part of the posterior chest wall. Okay, so it reinforces the upper parts of the posterior chest wall. So these are relatively the major functions of the scapula. That one right there, at the posterolateral aspect of the thoracic cage. It is triangular in shape, it is thin, it is a flat bone, okay, and it forms one of the bones of the girdle. It's one of the bones of the girdle, and that is hyoid. Alright, so we're going to go into the various parts of the scapula right now. So what are the parts of the scapula? You can discuss the parts of the scapula from various perspectives, two major perspectives. So first, some authorities say that the scapula has the following parts. Okay, so it has a head, it has a neck, and it has a body. So what is the head of the scapula? Look at this diagram. So the head of the scapula corresponds to this region where you have the glenoid cavity. So it's called the head. This region right here, where you have the glenoid cavity, it's called the head. The head of the scapula. So the head of the scapula is the lateral angle of the scapula. This part is directed away from the midline. Okay, where you have the glenoid cavity, that is the head of the scapula. So the lateral angle of the scapula is obliterated. It is interrupted by the glenoid cavity, okay, or the glenoid fossa that articulates with the head of the humerus. That is what we have right here. Alright. So that is the head. Then the neck of the scapula is inconspicuous, okay? So it has an inconspicuous neck. Inconspicuous neck. So the neck is not very much prominent. So the head, the region of the glenoid cavity, that's at the lateral angle. That's where you locate the head. The neck is the narrow constricted aspect, usually relatively before the two glenoid tubercles, okay? So before the supraglenoid and the infraglenoid tubercle, this narrow constricted portion right here is the neck of the scapula. So it is inconspicuous, it is not prominent. That is the neck of the scapula. Then the major part that we're interested in, which is the larger triangular aspect, is what is called the body of the scapula. So the large triangular part of the scapula. That is the body of the scapula. So, and these are the three major parts of the scapula. So it has a head. The head is formed by the lateral angle, and it is obliterated by the glenoid cavity or the glenoid fossa that articulates with the head of the humerus to form the glenohumeral joint or the shoulder joint, a multi-axial synovial joint of bone and socket variety. Okay. Now, it is also high for us to note most of the features of the scapula. Okay, and after that we determine the correct anatomical position of this bone. What are the features? Alright, so the scapula presents the following features. So right here is a border. It's a border of the scapula. And when you talk about the borders, this border right here is the medial border. It's the medial border. And because it lies along the vertebral line, just slightly away from the midline, it is also called the vertebral border of the scapula. It's also called the vertebral border of the scapula. Okay? So this border right here is called the lateral border. And this border right here that is interrupted by so many things, so many bony prominences, this border is known as the superior border. Superior border. Alright. So we can be able to tell about these borders when we look at the scapula and the shape that the scapula presents. So this is the medial border, very close to the midline, lies right here on the vertebrae. This is the lateral border, very close to the humerus. In fact, it's also called the humeral border. This is the superior border. It presents so many features. When you talk about the lateral border is obliterated superiorly. It is interrupted above. Okay, so when you move from below and you go up, this lateral border is interrupted above by the glenoid cavity. This is the glenoid cavity, or you call it the glenoid fossa. Okay. Now, then, after the neck region, this constriction right here is the neck. This constriction right here is the neck, and it is inconspicuous. Okay. We now have these bony elevations above the glenoid tubercle. This slight bony elevation above the glenoid tubercle, just like a protrusion here, is what is called the supraglenoid tubercle. Supra means above, glenoid. So above the glenoid, the supraglenoid tubercle. And the tubercle is a bony prominence, and that gives it the name supraglenoid tubercle. Then this counterpart right here, that is below the glenoid cavity, and is also a protrusion or a bony prominence, is called the infraglenoid tubercle. And of all the large area provided by the scapula, the long head of the triceps breaker, I choose to come and take origin from here. Who knows why? So this is the lateral border, and this is the superior border. So when you look at the superior border of the scapula, it looks a bit complex, but in the real sense, it's simple. Alright, so this is the superior border. Okay, it presents these features. So the superior border is interrupted, okay, by this feature. And this feature right here is called the coracoid process. It's called the coracoid process of the scapula. And I always tell students, the coracoid process of the scapula in reptiles is actually a separate bone, okay? But in human, it is joined to the scapula. And so the epiphysis it possesses is called the atavistic type of epiphysis, okay? The atavistic type of epiphysis. Let me write that here. The atavistic type of epiphysis. Okay, so the superior border is not really horizontal, it's a bit tilted, and it presents a notch, okay, just close to the roots of the coracoid process. It presents a notch. This notch right here, because it lies above the scapula, is called the suprascapular notch. Suprascapular notch. Yeah, the suprascapular notch has a significance, because the suprascapular notch is bridged by a ligament called the transverse suprascapular ligament. The transverse suprascapular ligament of the scapula bridges the suprascapular notch and converts it into a foramen. So it did a very good work there, right? So you have a notch right here, and a very generous ligament comes and crosses this notch. Automatically converts it into a foramen. Okay? So the army are going to pass above this foramen, while the navy are going to pass below this foramen. Okay? So when I say army, it simply means the axillary the suprascapular artery. So the suprascapular artery passes above the suprascapular ligament, okay, that bridges the suprascapular notch. While the suprascapular nerve is going to pass through the suprascapular foramen or below the transverse suprascapular ligament. That's what it means. So take a look at it again. So army above, army is for artery. So the artery are going to pass above, okay? Navy below. So the navy is for nerves. So these nerves are going to pass below. And as these nerves pass below, automatically they pass through the suprascapular foramen. Okay? So the suprascapular notch would have remained a notch until this transverse suprascapular ligament came and bridged it and converted it into a foramen. That was a very sudden change of evolution. Okay, so right here, we've been able to discuss the structures passing through this foramen, and you must take note of the suprascapular nerves. And those nerves, they go down to supply your supraspinatus and your infraspinatus muscles. We'll look at them when we discuss the brachial plexus. Alright, so, and from the posterior aspect of the scapula, from the dorsal surface, you have this projection that hangs down like a shelf. We're going to see it better in the dorsal view. And this projection is called the spine of the scapula. The spine of the scapula. The spine of the scapula has several significance, and we're going to discuss that later. Okay, so we are done with the various borders of the scapula. Let's look at the angles of the scapula. We say it is triangular, and of course, if it's triangular, it's a triangle. It has 3 angles, okay? It has 3 angles. So inverted this way has 3 angles. This, and this. Okay, alright. So this angle right here, above, is called the superior angle. So I'm going to label this the superior angle. Superior angle. So that's the superior angle. So this right here, of course, is down. And when things are actually below, we use the word inferior. So this is the inferior angle of the scapula. The superior angle of the scapula lies at the level of the second rib. High yield. It lies at the level of the second rib. While the inferior angle of scapula lies at the level of the 7th rib. Okay? And that automatically gives us the vertical extent of the scapula. And so if I ask you a multiple choice question, what is the vertical extent of the scapula? It's going to extend from the 2nd rib to the 7th rib. Okay? Alright. So, and remember that your various thoracic vertebrae are going to be giving rise to the ribs, okay, from the processes on the lateral aspect. So, that is the significance of this. And when you watch, we have another angle right here. Okay, this angle is towards the lateral border, and it goes away. So this angle was obliterated by a cavity. That cavity is called the glenoid cavity or the glenoid fossa. So this is the glenoid cavity right there. So you're going to have the head of the humerus, which articulates with it. Comes this way. Yeah, so this is the humerus, and it articulates with the glenoid cavity. So what does that mean? It means the lateral angle is interrupted. It is obliterated by the glenoid cavity. So this angle right here is the lateral angle. So this is the lateral angle. This is the lateral angle. Alright. So this structure right here is simply the lateral expansion, lateral projection, lateral expansion of the spine of the scapula. It fans out laterally and broadens. And this structure is called the acromion. The acromion is a gentleman. It articulates to the lateral end of the clavicle to form the acromioclavicular joint, and we'll discuss that in the lecture on clavicle. Alright, so we've been able to discuss the angles of the scapula, and it's high time we looked at the various processes of the scapula. So what are the processes? What do we call processes? What are processes? Processes are simply projections, bony projections from a bone. Processes are simply bony projections. Okay, various projections you have from a bone, you can call them processes. So the scapula has 3 processes, and let's look at this diagram. Okay, so this process right here that we've discussed is called the coracoid process. It presents atavistic type of epiphysis. Not just that, it provides surface for the attachment of muscles, 3 muscles. The short head of biceps brachii, so the short head of biceps. The pectoralis minor muscle, okay, also attaches on the medial aspect of the coracoid process, and the 3rd muscle is the coracobrachialis. Somehow, the coracoid process is very interested in its name. So coracobrachialis moves from the coracoid process, okay, towards the arm. Biceps brachii, short head. okay? And then we have the pectoralis minor muscle. So these are the various muscles you're going to find there. Alright, and the coracoid process is finger-like projection. It is a finger-like projection. And some texts refer to it as, it assumes the shape of the beak of birds, okay? So it's a finger-like projection, and it has a root or a base, okay? So this is the base of the coracoid process. And it's important you take note of that. So what else should you know about the coracoid process? It has been regarded to as the surgeon's lighthouse, because location of the coracoid process enables you to know the orientation of various nerves and vessels around the scapula. So that is the significance. And then the acromion is another process. That's process number 2. The acromion. So the acromion is either you call it the acromion or you call it the acromial process. The acromion is an extension of the spinous process of the scapula. So it is the lateral expansion of the spine of the scapula. And it fans out and it broadens. That is the acromial process. So the acromial process provides surface for the attachment of muscles, usually the deltoid and the trapezius. We're going to look at that in a jiffy. And again, the acromial process of the scapula also articulates with the lateral end of the clavicle to form the acromioclavicular joint. So these are the features you need to know about the acromion. Alright, so it fans out laterally. And the third process, we cannot see it from the costal surface, but we can see it from the dorsal surface or the posterior surface. So let's look at the dorsal surface. So when you look at the dorsal surface of the scapula, we're going to find this projection here, okay? It moves from the vertebral border and goes superolaterally and then fans out to continue at the acromion. So this right here is the acromion. So you see this right here, it's called the spine. This is the spine of the scapula. So either you call it the spine of the scapula or you call it the spinous process. Or the spinous process, okay? Alright, so the spine has borders and surfaces, okay? So this is the superior border of the spine. Of the spine. So this region right here is the root of the spine. Okay, so this is the upper lip of the spine. So this right here is the upper lip. This is the upper lip of the spine. The upper lip of the spine. And this is the lower lip of the spine. Okay, this curve right here towards the root is called the lower lip of the spine. Okay, now what is the most important significance of the spine of the scapula? So the spine of the scapula divides the dorsal surface of the scapula or the posterior surface of the scapula into two unequal fossae, into two unequal regions. That is the most important significance of the spine. And the second significance of the spine of the scapula is that it provides surfaces for the attachment of muscles. Let's look into that. So this spine right here divided the dorsal surface of the scapula, okay, into a larger infraspinous fossa. So this is the infraspinous fossa. Infraspinous fossa. It is larger. And a smaller supraspinous fossa. Really, I've not seen a process that is as partial as the spine of the scapula. So I feel you should have divided it equal, but that is its preference. So it divided the dorsal surface of the scapula into two unequal areas known as the fossae. And the one that lies above the spine of the scapula is called the supra. Supra means above, spinous, above the spine. It's called the supraspinous fossa. And the muscle takes origin from the inner to third of that fossa. And that muscle is called the supraspinatus muscle. And then below the spine of the scapula, you have another fossa, which is way, way larger compared to the supraspinous fossa. And that fossa is called the infraspinous fossa. And from the medial to third of the infraspinous fossa, a muscle takes origin from there. And that muscle is called the infraspinatus. Alright. So right here, you have the infraspinous fossa. And this is the origin of the infraspinatus muscle. Right here, you have the supraspinous fossa. And this is the origin of this supraspinatus muscle. Okay? Now, this nerve right here that passes through the suprascapular foramen, that nerve, we call it the suprascapular nerve. Suprascapular nerve. I already explained that. Okay? And the suprascapular nerve typically moves from the supraspinous fossa to the infraspinous fossa through a notch. That notch is called the spinoglenoid notch. Okay, through the spinoglenoid notch. Spinoglenoid notch. So the spinoglenoid notch, okay, is simply a passage which transmits the suprascapular nerve. So the suprascapular nerve moves from the supraspinous fossa to the infraspinous fossa after exiting the suprascapular foramen through the supraglenoid notch. So it gets into the infraspinous fossa. That is how it is able to supply the supraspinatus and the infraspinatus muscle. That is high yield. Okay. So these are the three processes that the scapula possess. So the scapula possess the spinous process, it possess the acromial process, it possess the coracoid process. Okay, and the spinous process is shelf-like. This is a shelf-like projection. The coracoid process is finger-like projection. The acromial process fans out laterally, okay, and broadens and provides areas for the attachment of muscles, mainly the deltoid and the trapezius. Alright.